Hey, college wrestling fans, it's JT1Wrestle here, and I once again have the Swayze on. We're going to talk a little Dark Horse sleeper action in NCAA Division II, and we're going to start off at 125 pounds. I'll let Swayze give us his pick.
Yeah, so for 125 pounds, I'm going to the MIAA conference, which has claimed the team title for about 4 or 5 years in a row now. And I'm going to go specifically with the national championship team of the Lopers from Nebraska Kearney. I really like Caleb Coyle. Uh, he has some really good wins. He had a win over Ernest Grant, who was a blood round guy for York University in the NAIA, and he has a win over Rice Sellers, 7-3. And Sellers is damn tough. Um, so I think Caleb Cole is a very big sleeper that a lot of people just don't know about because the Lopers are loaded from top to bottom.
Speaking of Rice Sellers, who is, as you said, a damn good wrestler, that is my pick here, my sleeper, my dark horse. He is a three-time Super Region sixth place winner with finishes of fifth, and sixth. He has decided to transfer and wrestle his final season of eligibility for Colorado State Pueblo this year. Sellers, as you said before, is a very tough kid. He has some great wins. He's been ranked as high as number 15 in the country. I don't see any reason why he can't finish somewhere, in the top 18 this year, be an NCAA Division II qualifier, and I think on a good day, maybe even challenge for a top 12, perhaps even a top 8 spot.
Yeah, and the thing with Rice Sellers too, he was at New Mexico Highlands. Not a knock on New Mexico Highlands, but I believe that the room he will be in now with Pueblo is just going to elevate him even more in a region that he's already familiar with. So excellent pick there. So I think both guys that we have might collide a few times on the year, so that'll be fun. Let's jump into 133 for me. I'm staying in the conference too. I'm taking Jevin Faust of Newman University. Some big wins on the season. He was mainly at 141, but when he dropped to 133, he was very solid, including fifth place finish in the Super Region 4, where a lot of the MIAA got shipped out that way, as opposed to National Champs Kearney, who got shipped out to Super Region 6. So Jevin Faust out of Newman is my 33.
My 133-pound pick will be from Grand Valley State University. I have been thoroughly impressed with how good they've been and how well they've been doing since the reinstatement of the program here a few years ago. So far, Keller has been sixth at the Midwest Classic, which, if you read my writing and listen to me talk, you know that a lot of times I feel sometimes not only is it the toughest in season tournament of the year, I sometimes feel it's the toughest tournament in NCAA Division II wrestling, period. Even sometimes tougher than the actual national tournament itself. So that's my opinion on the Midwest Classic there. He was fourth at Super Region 3 last year, that dreaded fourth place where you're just one match away from being a NCAA Division II qualifier, had a 8-5 decision over Christian Davis, who finished third in the D2 Nation last year. I think Jack Keller goes into the season. I would say he's probably going to be ranked. I'm not sure where, but I think by season's end, this guy could be contending for the D2 national title.
Nice. Nice pick. And yeah, the Midwest Classic is it's a doozy. You've got guys that will place there that won't even win their starting spot. And then vice versa, you've got guys that will uh, not place and go on to be All-Americans. It's a crazy kind of a weekend there. Going into 141, I really like a kid out of a younger program, and that is Montevallo out of Alabama. I really like Caden Brown, and a big reason I like him. Last year, he was a true freshman and he won 20 matches. Now, he had 43 total, so he was 20 and 13, and some people might be like, well, that's quite a bit of losses. You got to think about where Montevallo is. They're in Alabama. They don't have a lot of opportunities to wrestle um, other D2s. I mean, they dip over some to see the Coastal Conference, but they're probably running into quite a bit of D1 schools like Chattanooga's not far away, Citadel and other teams like that. Plus, like every once in a while, you run into Life and all the powerhouse Southeast NAI programs. But just on a deal that he had 20 wins. He placed in the Georgia Open, and most of his wins came by bonus last year. So I really like Caden Brown and Montevallo.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his as well. He definitely stood out to me in a couple of his victories last year, and I really like how you brought up the caliber of competition. I think sometimes people will look at a record and put too much stock into it when what you really need to do is rate quality over quantity, and I think that's a case with Cade Brown right there. My pick at 141 pounds will be someone I'm not sure if fans are too familiar with him. He is a transfer from North Dakota State University, and he will be competing for Vanguard this year. The name is Fernando Barreto. To give you an idea of just how good this guy has the potential for being, a 7-6 win over Sean Solis, who was third in NCAA Division II wrestling. He has a win over two-time NCAA Division I qualifier, South Dakota State Derek Cardinal, and then he also defeated Pedro Velasquez 21-6 technical fall. And what really sticks out to me is last year's NCAA Division II champion Johnny Lopez of San Francisco State wrestled Barreto, and it came down to a very tight 2-1 decision. A riding time point is what won Lopez the match over Barreto. So when I say that I think this is going to be a guy nobody knows as we're going into the season, and everybody's going to know him within probably a month or two, the name is Fernando Barreto.
Awesome, awesome pick. As we dip now into 149, and
Real
you
quick
know,
here.
oh yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had a hard time narrowing it down at 141. So I also want to give a shout out real quick, and some people are going to be like, "Well, that's not really a dark horse. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't." I want to put a word in for Elias Craig of St. Cloud State. As a
mm,
freshman and as a sophomore, he finished fourth at the Super Region. I said about him as a freshman, I said it about him as a sophomore that he was probably one of the absolute best kids in both seasons not to make the NCAA Division II tournament. Last year, I don't know what happened exactly. He didn't place the Super Regions last year, which I think even more so makes him a sleeper and a dark horse for this season. Wins last year, though, did include a 7-6 decision over Jake Kniffenegger, two-time All-American, and also had an 8-0 major decision over Colton Hush of Minnesota State Mankato, who made the round of 12. So I think Elias Craig is one of those guys that this happens in wrestling sometimes. You have a bad performance, people are like, "Oh, let's forget about him. His career is done." It's like, "No, sir. There's redemption in wrestling," and I say we see the if it ain't Shawshank, it might be the Craig redemption this year.
and I like that pick because he's a Kansas boy, and Kansas guys when they get out of the state of Kansas, because there's a few options to go to D2 there. They have traditionally done very well. A lot of different national champions come out of Kansas at T2. Now, we talk about dark horses and upset minded and whether or not they're really a big deal or not. When I'm thinking of this, I really had to think about if somebody was just forgotten. And I think that's a big thing. Somebody on the back burner that we have forgotten about because where were they last year? Probably not a big surprise on this one, but I'm going to go with the guy that redshirted last year. And that person is Matt Sarbo from the University of Pitt Johnstown, two-time NJCAA champion for Iowa Central. I'm telling you, you're in a Pitt Johnstown room. He's back home in Pennsylvania, I think people have forgotten about Matt Sarbo, and he's going to waken up some people out there on the East Coast that might have forgotten about him too. And I can't wait to see what happens, middle of the season when there are things like the Midwest Classic and there's the national duels to see if we see Sarbo emerge as the starter if he's back. That's the one thing too that we gotta give a caveat to. There's a lot of websites not updated yet, so a lot of this is speculation. So give us some grace if somebody's not back before you just chew us out. But I think Matt Sarbo at 149 is going to light people up.
I have the privilege of living in the state of Iowa, and as a result, I mean, I've talked to some other people. I think there's certain regions of the country, Pennsylvania, Ohio, probably parts of New York, North Carolina would be another example. But I think here in Iowa, I'm a pretty spoiled wrestling fan because there's so much great wrestling and at every single level. Well, I guess with exception to the California community colleges, of course. But yeah, I got to see him compete a couple of times. He was just an absolute monster. And if he is anything at all in NCAA Division II, like he was in the NJCAA, look out.
Yep. So you go ahead and take it away for your 149.
Alrighty, my friend. So my 149 pounder, dark horse here, it will be a Florida kid, a kid from Florida. You know how much I love it when those southeastern part of the country kids show off their talents. RJ Noble of Lander, very tough kid. He was eighth at the Midwest Classic last year and fourth at the Super Regions. So I think this is a guy that Lander. I mean, look how good they are. Look how great the Bearcat wrestling program is. And people are like, are they going to be as good as they were last year? I think if a guy like RJ Noble and some other guys I could mention, if they step up and wrestle to their potential, yes, they will be.
Nice. Nice. I'm going to go all the way from the East Coast to about as far west as you can go for Division II, and that will be to San Francisco State. And my pick for 157 is Antonio Aramburu. Yeah. I had to say that one twice to figure this out. But I like him for multiple reasons. First of all, his major's biology, so he's no idiot. And I like those smart wrestlers because they do give a little bit of something different on the mat. But his track record, uh, before he came to San Francisco State, and he's only going to be a sophomore, by the way, um, he was top 12 twice in the state of California in high school. So he's one of those guys that he lost in the blood round two different times in California because they do like college, it's top eight. And so I think in some regards, he may have fallen off the out of the eyesight of some D1 schools. And San Francisco State rolled the dice and now they got this kid that honestly, as a sophomore, could potentially shock some people that don't know about him, but soon might. So, Antonio Aramburu of San Francisco State is my 157.
My 157-pound pick is yet again another Florida kid. Going to go with McKendree's Cal Hoskinson. He was fifth at Super Region 4 last year. He was one match away from being a place winner at the Midwest Classic. Had a 4-3 win over qualifier Lance Overmeyer. Uh, McKendree, again, ironically enough, they're also called the Bearcats, which is the same thing that Lander is called. I think they're going to be very good this year. I think they have a great team, a great coaching staff. The coaching staff that's able to take guys and continuously see them get better and better and better every season. So I'm anxious to see what Kale Hoskinson can do this year.
Nice, nice. All right, let's move on. We're already halfway through our list, and I'm going to go with an individual. And I got to preface this. I attended and am a letterman and an alum of the University of Central Oklahoma. So the Broncos are finally making my list. Now, like any powerhouse, this guy may end up being the starter. He may end up being the fourth string. Don't know, but I'm going to take a punting chance on this one. Brady Benham, four-time state champion out of Oklahoma. He's making a comeback to home. Last year, he wrestled for a team you may have heard of, the Hawkeyes of Iowa. And the Hawkeyes, what happened there was, as the scholarship limits were occurring and roster caps, he was kind of dismissed out the back. And if you look at his record last year, he placed in two tournaments as a red shirt. One of them was the Luther Open, where he was second in the silver bracket, and he was third at the Loris Open at 165. I mean, those aren't D1 opens, but there is a lot of D1 teams that show up. I think being back home, he had a 7-3 record, which isn't earth-shattering, and it's really not a lot of matches either. But I just think coming back home, being closer to support, I think Brady Benham might do some special things at UCO at 165.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever heard of him, you speaking about him. But I will say that, just in my observation, when you go to a place like Iowa, I want to be careful the way I say this because I know Iowa has a family atmosphere and they really care about their wrestlers and everybody's a part of it. But at the same time, it's also a very competitive, natured room where there's an expectation that, and like I said, I'm gonna be careful about the way I say this, but it's also true. So I'm just going to come out and say it. And if people don't like it, I can maybe, figure out a way to say it better later. But when you go into the Iowa room and you go to weight class by weight class by weight class, there's an expectation this guy are going to be the two fighting it out for the spot. Everybody else is just kind of there to help make these other two guys better. Right? That's kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
You could go 125 through heavyweight, and you could say, okay, at this weight class, you have six wrestlers, but these two are the only two that are really being taken seriously. Everybody else is just kind of like in the Rocky movies. Rocky's going to be the boxer, and these other guys that are sparring with him are just there to make Rocky better. That's going on at University of Iowa. I think at Central Oklahoma, it's more along the lines of it doesn't matter as much that, this is the guy that we want to start. This is the guy that we're putting all the money and the investment into. It's more along the lines of get out there on the mat and whoever's better is going to be our starter. I think that's the situation, at least from my observation. You having been there and seen that, is that a correct observation?
It's been that's been a lot of commonality. You will see a lot of individuals, unless it's real clear cut. You won't see Gabe Johnson, the two-time national champion, in an open, but you'll see about everybody else on the bus and out there competing. And a lot of it comes back down to how you place in tournaments, how you show resiliency in tough situations. They'll throw some guys out there in duels. I know I was in a few duels. I even went out to Las Vegas and wrestled in the Cliff Keens back in the day. They will throw some opportunities out there and really evaluate it two or three prong. I think what the thing with Iowa too that I want to harp on is, if you have a 7-3 record, it's basically you're winning 70% against non D1 guys. If there's a cap, they have to treat it like a business. And if you keep certain guys around, no knock on him by any means, but if you keep certain guys around, you're going to miss out on other guys and you'll have less of an opportunity to recruit down the line. And he was only a freshman, so you're talking about 4 more years. I don't blame him, but I'm glad that he's a Bronco now, and I look forward to seeing his career.
Bit
Oh,
much
is it
better. I
my
was trying
turn?
to figure out a way to put that, and you put it much better than I did, so I'll give you props on that. My pick at 165 pounds is a guy that I've been watching for a long time. I had some very, very big expectations for him when he first entered the collegiate scene. He hasn't quite performed to the level that I thought that he would, but again, that's why we have one more year left, and I think he could really, stand. I really hope he does stand out this year and has a phenomenal season. Talking about four-time Wisconsin high school state champion Cole Marco of Minnesota State Mankato. He has been fourth, fifth, fourth in the super region. So literally just one or two matches away from being an NCAA the Division II qualifier the last three seasons. And like the Sways, I love seeing kids that also get it done in the classroom, get it done on the mat. He is a two-time NWCA Scholar All-American.
Nice. And anybody that wrestles for the great Jim Makovsky usually does pretty well, not only in the classroom and on the mats, but they are standout citizens. He doesn't recruit turd burglars, as I call them. He's got some good people. So
I
I'm
I
excited
gotta
about that.
I got to comment on that real quick. I agree with that 100%, and I really hate it when this happens to me. I'm not thinking of the name phenomenal wrestler that they produced a couple of years ago. Was a heavyweight national champion as a junior, took third as a senior. Is the name coming to you?
I know exactly who you're talking about, and it
I just
makes me
can't think
mad.
of it.
Um, he's on staff now, if I recall, at Southeast Community College down here in Nebraska. And that is bugging me because I do their play-by-play.
Yeah, I hate it when this happens to me, but the reason I wanted to bring that up is because I was at the national tournament the year that he took third, and he had just come off of a tough loss, and then he come back and he took third, and um he was sitting in the stands not too far from me, and you could tell that he wasn't happy because he kind of felt like he shouldn't have lost the match that he ended up losing. I think to a kid from Glenville State, if I can remember correctly. But anyway, what really stuck out to me about him, you're talking about someone, these guys being outstanding citizens that wrestle for the Maverick Wrestling Program. There were all these little
Yep.
kids that were surrounding him and like treating him like he was like Andre the Giant or something. He was signing autographs and shaking hands and taking pictures, and I just thought that was pretty cool. And you see that. I just wanted to comment on that because what you said about the Minnesota State Maverick, Mankato Maverick wrestling program has a lot of truth to it, and that's an example of it.
And I just figured it out. Malcolm Allen.
There you go. I could not think of that to save my life.
Yep. Malcolm Allen. All right,
Yep.
we better keep cooking, otherwise
Yes,
we
sir.
might get timed out.
Oh no.
Um, 174. I was having a real back and forth in the same room, but I'm going to give the nod here. We're going to stay in the Northern Sun. Mary University or University of Mary. I'm going to go with Connor Mansky. Connor Mansky and his teammate Wyatt Elam, same weight class. They met for the third place match at the Eunice Hospitality Open, which is right up there in terms of probably toughest open, not invitational in D2. It probably gets the billing. Mansky wins by a match limit in that match, but he only had one loss in that tournament, and that was to Leo Tuklianovich of Rochester, who was two-time third place finisher in JUCO and is now at Arizona State. It was a close match, and I've seen Tuklianovich in person, and he's a monster. So I think Mansky really for University of Mary is going to do something special at 174. So Northern Sun and everybody else, watch out for Connor Mansky.
My pick at 174 pounds will be from Augustana, the one in South Dakota that has their schedule out, may I add. He's a Minnesota kid. His name is Coy Gunderson, and he has been fifth the last two seasons at the Super Region. So anxious to see how he can do. He's had some good wins in his career. Augustana has I don't want to call it a habit, but it's been since I've been following D2 wrestling. They do a really good job of having their wrestlers who are seniors really just give it their all, stick out, and have a great season. That's one of the reasons why I think Coy Gunnarsson will have a great year this year.
Nice, nice. Um, so moving on to 184 is a guy that redshirted in 23-24 and last year as a redshirt freshman became a starter. Only had a 14-9 record, but went on fire at the Super Region 1. This is Millersville's Cole Dubois. And Cole Dubois, I really like. He's got a big, lanky frame at 6 foot, 184 pounds. I think he's got a lot of potential. Plus, he's got a tattoo on his right bicep that says Poppy Power. So whatever that's about, cool on you, dude. But he's a tough hombre, and so I think Cole Dubois, Millersville, um, the way he shocked people, I think he's got a little bit momentum coming into the front part of the year that we're going to see that 14-9 record be closer to probably a 24-6 record this year. So I really like Cole Dubois, Millersville. That's my 184.
You say his name because I've been butchering his last name for quite some time. I thought it was Dubois. It's Dubois, huh? So
Well, it could be Dubois, Dubois. I mean, we'll
yeah,
find out. Millersville people will let us know.
that's true. Alrighty, 184 pounds for JT1 Wrestle. Um, this is a guy that I don't even know if he's going to make the varsity this year or not because he has got one of the best wrestle offs in NCAA Division II. Um, Jack McKiernan of he was wrestling for American International. Thus far in Super Region, he has been third, fourth at Super Region 1, so an NCAA Division II qualifier as a freshman, one match away from qualifying as a sophomore and as a junior. Um, I'm not going to get too much into it because, for one, I probably would have a hard time refraining from swearing, but I think everybody knows how I feel about American International and the underhanded um, unethical way in which they discontinued their program. So I would love to see McKiernan come into this season, have a great season, have some great accomplishments, some great credentials as a way of kind of sticking it to them, showing them that, hey, um, you got rid of me, you didn't care about me, and I'm going to shove it in your face. I would love to see that. But with that said, he's got to get through, if he can, he transferred to Mount Olive, and they already have a great wrestler there at 184 pounds, and that is Kalen Staub, who is a two-time NCAA Division II qualifier in his own right with first, fourth, and third place finishes at Super Region. I would love to see because both of these guys are tremendous wrestlers, tremendous talents. I would love to see, somehow maybe one of them goes up to 197. I think they're both too big and too powerful and too strong to go down to 174. Could be wrong about that. I hate the fact you have two extremely good wrestlers at the same weight class here. But with that said, may the best man tell and move forward. And I think either one of these guys is going to have a great season.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice there. Um, I'm going to go ahead with my 197. And again, when we're talking about dark horses or the guys that are going under the radar, it doesn't mean that they haven't done something spectacular already in college. It just means that we think a majority of people may not know who they are, including people that are coaching or wrestling in that division. My pick at 197 is in California, specifically Menlo. Menlo is going to be at the D2 level this year. They had a quick transition from NAI, where they were a powerhouse. And I'm going to go with Diego Morales. And Diego Morales, I really like for multiple reasons. He did extremely well at the Mile High Open that had the only two guys that finished ahead of him were Caston Grape and Bradley Annisberger, both at Doan. And I haven't looked at the bracket, but the one bracket that is big was they were transitioning. So when you transition, you could be in the NCWA, and he took second in the country in the NCWA. Now, If you've never seen those brackets, they're pretty big. And NCAA, I know some people call it a club, but you have to be very careful with that. Granted, there are some teams that treat it as a club and even have it listed as club sports, but there's a lot of teams that are transitioning or don't meet the same academic requirements and are on a different scale. Apprentice Academy is one of them that are extremely tough. Um, but Morales last year lost to Annisberger by 1 point, and Annisberger was a monster in NAIA. So I'm going with Diego Morales and Menlo to just rock some socks off.
At the Menlo program, I'm very happy to see them going NCAA Division II, and one of the main reasons why I'm so happy about that is because unfortunately, because of all the discontinuation and because of some really crappy athletic directors, uh, we've seen the decline of collegiate wrestling in the state of California, and to the contrary of that, because of programs like Cal Poly, San Francisco State, Cal Poly Humboldt, so on and so forth, we're seeing the growth of California wrestling again. And Menlo is a big, big, big part of that at the NCAA Division II level. So I love that pick for that reason. Moving on to 197 for JT1 Wrestle. My pick here is Lucas Salmon of Tiffin. Super tough kid. Kind of surprised that he hasn't made the NCAA Division II tournament yet. I definitely feel that he will this year. He has been fifth, the last two Super Region threes, and he was also sixth at the Midwest Classic last year. He has wins over both Wayne McIntyre by a 3-1 decision, as well as a 4-0 decision over Eli Reese, who were both NCAA Division II qualifiers last season.
Nice, nice. And I know we're running short on time. We're under 8 minutes to go. So 285 pounds. I was split between two guys, but I'm going to go with Nathan Coley of King, sixth at the Super Region 2 last year, third in the KCAC when he wrestled for Avila of the NAIA. He wrestled a lot of 197 pounds. So I really think the opportunity to grow and maybe be a more of a fuller size that he can do okay at heavyweight, I think will be pretty outstanding. I think there was one or two graduations in the top three in that region. So I think that helps him out potentially. If he doesn't make it, he's going to be fourth. But he's on that cusp of I think he's a national qualifier. May win a match at nationals, but I would put him at least a national qualifier potential.
People to understand real quick, you alluded to it a little earlier when you were talking about it, but when we say dark horses and sleepers here in NCAA Division II, for those of you that aren't as familiar with this division of wrestling, you have to understand it's not like D1 where you have, 41% of the wrestlers that make the national tournament. At D2, it's a much smaller percentage. Only the top three per weight class per region will make it to the NCAA Division II tournament. So you're going to have a bracket of probably anywhere from I don't know what is it, like 16 to 21 teams in a region, and only the
Yep.
top three kids in that bracket are going to go to nationals. So what we're saying here is these are kids that are extremely good, extremely tough, that may have not made nationals over the years, that are looking to probably be a national qualifier this year, or at least be in serious contention to be one. So I just wanted to make that out there real quick. So my pick at heavyweight will be Newman's Caleb Wunsch. He's a senior this year. He had the most pins of anyone at NCAA Division II last year. 19 of his 26 wins last year were via fall. This kid wants to put you on your back. He wants to pin you. He wants to stick you. I was surprised that he finished sixth at the Super Region 6 last year. I thought he was a better wrestler than that. But like I said, not everybody always has their best day on that tournament. What really sticks out to me is he had a very impressive 4 minute and 43-second fall over Cody Pinkerton, a former standout of Western Wyoming, who was an NCAA Division II qualifier last year. So I think Caleb Wunsch is one of those guys that when you're the type of guy and you are constantly the entire 7 minutes trying to pin somebody, that makes you a dangerous person when you're always looking for the fall. So that makes him exciting, and I think he's the kind of guy that could win the I'm not sure what they call it at the NCAA Division II level, but did they call it the Korean Award like they do in D1? Do you
I,
know?
that's what I've always known.
Okay. So there we have it. So guys, there is the Dark Horse picks 125 pounds through heavyweight for um the Swayze and I. So I hope these are picks you guys are going to be paying attention to this year. We both mentioned a lot of great talent. NCAA Division II wrestling has, some phenomenal wrestling. So definitely look out for these guys and look out for some other guys. And until next time, JT1 Wrestle and the Sways.